Hi, everyone. Brian Valerio, Vice President in the Proxy Solicitation Group at Alliance Advisors. And today I'm joined by Ted Wallace, also in our Proxy Solicitation Group, where Ted heads up our Asia Pacific practice. So one thing Ted and I have been noticing and have been discussing over the past few years has been the transition of the emerging governance trends from Europe and how they kind of shift west. They go from Europe to the United States, and then it seems like these trends are now popping up in Asia. Ted, can you talk a little bit about this?
Yeah. I think that there's definitely, it's like there's a wind blowing from Europe across the Atlantic, and then right through the United States, and then out farther west across the Pacific. It's not. I would not say that it's like a wind. It's not a cookie cutter. You see one thing happen in Europe, and then the exact same thing happens in the United States, and then it it replicates itself exactly in Asia as well. There's a lot of cultural aspects that really affect the trend. So it's very much it's nebulous. It's a trend, more than it is kind of exact cookie cutter things. I think, recently we've been seeing, a lot more, more emphasis on E&S. I mean, it's, that's been huge, especially with shareholder proposals in the last, 2 years or so in the United States. The E&S shareholder proposals have really skyrocketed.
Absolutely. And they seem to be getting a lot more support recently. There was, majority supported over 20 shareholder proposals this year in the United States, which seemed to be a bit of a record.
Right, exactly. And I think what's happening right now, we're starting to see our clients in Asia are starting to get more E&S related questions. So we're not seeing shareholder proposals out there exactly the way we see them here in the United States, but it's more like we see fund managers starting to ask questions that are more around like the CSR reports. We are seeing proxy teams starting to ask more questions along those lines. So it's environmental and social stuff. We are seeing more more questions about board diversity. I have not seen a whole lot of stark major action being taken by the proxy teams out in the Asia markets. But it's definitely something that comes up a lot on phone calls. Board diversity, things like that, especially gender diversity right now. That's the big one.
Which I guess would kind of stay true with what we were talking about, how those trends kind of are heading from Europe to the US to Asia, because this was a big point of emphasis over the past couple of years in the United States. And now it seems like going forward, there might be an increased emphasis on ethnic and racial diversity at the board level and at the executive team level. So maybe that's something that we could see make its way over to Asia in the future.
I think that'll be, and I don't know. I wonder, I wonder how that would translate, because it's like, those are major issues in the United States right now. We have
the major social justice movement that's going on.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily know that that's quite as embedded in different cultures in Asia. And you got to remember, it's the United States is a big country. It's you kind of can't treat Asia as just like the United States. It's kind of Japan is different from Korea. That's different from Thailand. That's different from Taiwan. That's different from China. So everybody's kind of a little bit different there, and has their own kind of cultural spin on what's happening.
And that kind of speaks to what you said at the outset of how this isn't an exact science. It's not exactly what you see in the US is going to translate to Asia. It's going to be dependent on the individual cultures for the different countries that these companies are incorporated in and are situated
Correct. In. Yeah. And I think gender diversity I think that's going to translate fairly well. I don't know that. I mean, right now in the United States, I feel like the push is kind of like, hey, let's get the board to be 50-50 male and female. I think that's we're setting goals like 30% and then 50%, but I think that eventually a completely balanced board is going to be more the ideal here in the United States. That may be 10 years away for some Asian countries. I think we're looking at let's get a female representative on the board. I mean, they
Sure.
are, almost all the boards that I see, a lot of them do have female representation, but majority are all men. So I think initially it's going to be, let's get a woman on the board, and then it's, let's increase that ratio. And there are definitely, funds out there and proxy groups, proxy teams at institutional investors that have it in their policies now, where they really are pushing, let's go more towards a balanced board.
And so this is one of the big emphasis of your work as well, helping these companies engage with their institutional investors in Asia. Because if I understand it correctly, this is also kind of a relatively new dynamic for a lot of issuers. This isn't something that's kind of been embedded in the corporate culture over there for a decade or more. This is something that's relatively new. The issue of going out and having these proactive governance conversations with some of their largest institutional investors.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I really think that having conversations with the portfolio managers and the analysts, and having investor relations teams reach out to bring in foreign investment, is something that they're used to and they're comfortable with. One thing I see a lot is our companies saying, well, our numbers were not that great in the last quarter. Our ROE is not great. I don't think we really want to have a conversation with the foreign investors. One of the things that we're constantly explaining to clients is, hey, look, there's kind of two different teams you got to be talking to. One is the investment side, and that's your portfolio managers and analysts, and the other is the proxy side and the governance side. That's there are different mindsets there. I mean, there are places where they blend, especially in kind of an ESG specific fund. But by and large, it's an entirely different conversation. I mean, the proxy team is not necessarily going to be frustrated with your ROE. They want to talk about what's in your CSR report.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. I know for me it was very insightful learning some of the corporate governance trends and emerging issues in the Asia market. Hopefully some of our viewers found it interesting too. And I'm sure if anybody has questions, they can reach out to you and you'd be happy to connect with them and talk to them about their issues, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks very much, Brian.
All right. Thank you for joining me, Ted. I appreciate it.
Bye.